Good evening, parents, carers, and St. Gregory's College students of Year 7 2020. On behalf of the college principal, Mr. Lee McMaster, and our leadership team, I would like to welcome you to our Parent and Carers Orientation Information Evening. My name is David DeBeckus, and I'm the college captain for 2020. Both myself and our college vice captain, Jeremiah Fisher, will be emceeing this evening.
Good evening. I'm Jeremiah Fisher, the College Vice Captain for 2020. I would like to welcome first one of our student leaders, Lindsay Munro of Year 12, for our acknowledgement of country.
We pause to remember the uniqueness of this place. We honour and respect the generations of the Pastoral people who held this land in their dreaming.
Thank you, Lindsay. As is customary at St. Gregory's College, we begin our gathering this evening in prayer. In particular, as we gather this evening as the community of St. Gregory's, we keep in mind the many needs of the wider community. We know that our country at the moment is deeply affected by drought and fire. Many of our country families are finding this a particularly challenging time, and so we keep them and all who need our prayers in our thoughts today. We begin in the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. A reading from the first letter of John. We know that we love the children of God when we love God and obey the commandments. And the commandments are not burdensome, for whoever is born of God conquers the world. Heavenly Father, you constantly challenge us to look after the children. Gift us with your grace so we may be keepers of your word and build a corner of your kingdom in our school. May our new students be warmly received into our community and experience the reality of presence and simplicity. May they develop an understanding of Mary and a love of work, and may our new families feel welcome and experience the family spirit which is important to us. We make this prayer through Christ our Lord. Amen. St. Marcel and St. Gregory, pray for us. Mary, our good mother, pray for us. And let us always remember to pray for one another. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. I would now like to introduce Kieran Foran to speak to you about his time so far this year at St. Gregory's College. Kieran is in Year 7 and has been involved in many aspects of the school life, notably public speaking. So please welcome Kieran.
A little over 9 months ago, we gathered in this hall to give you an understanding about what a great school St. Gregory's College is. You heard about the college's expectations and policies, the opportunities on offer, and for some of you, boarding life. That evening, I took to the stage and told you about my experience in the first 5 weeks I had as a Year 7 boy. I spoke to you about the nerves of my first day, the welcoming community of students and staff, and of course, the thing I feared, the red stamp. And by the way, they found me. Fast forward 9 months, and now you are a part of Year 7 2020. Congratulations. The first thing I want to let you know is that I survived Year 7, and I know that you will too. You may start with Year 7 with a big group of friends from your primary school, or you may start at the college with not knowing anyone. Either way, you will meet plenty of people in your first few weeks. You will attend camp in the first term, and throughout the year, what will seem like an endless opportunities to meet people, for you to form friendships and experience college life. Rugby union, AFL, choir, basketball, debating, golf, chess, cricket, public speaking, agriculture, and soccer are just a few of the co-curricular and sporting activities on offer here at St. Greg's. Don't be worried if you've never played a particular sport or been part of a debating team before. Just give it a go. This year I played chess and I discovered that I was really good at it. I continued to practice and I was lucky enough to make the chess team. I never played rugby union before, but I thought, why not? I signed up and I really enjoyed playing. We travelled to places like Armidale, Bathurst and Oxford Falls. I made some really good friends playing rugby this year, and more recently basketball. Friendships are discovered and developed not only through class and homeroom, but also by being part of a sport or team. Each year there is a college musical, and this year it was St. Greg's turn to host. We performed High School Musical. Being part of the musical means that you get to meet students from other grades and students from St. Patrick's. St. Patrick's are hosting next year, and while participating in the musical may take you out of your comfort zone, I recommend signing up. We all enjoyed rehearsing after school and on weekends and playing to a sold-out audience over 3 nights. You are all now part of our college community, and if I can give you any advice about Year 7, it is to persevere and work to your full potential and participate in college life. And whatever you choose to do with your time here at St. Greg's, do it well. And remember, what you get out of any experiences is determined by what you put into it, which is essentially our school motto, Quae, Semper Vares, Metes. I look forward to seeing you all on the playground next year. Thank you.
Congratulations, Kieran, on having that courage to stand up and give your reflections on your beginnings here at the college. So thank you for your great work. Our college principal, Mr. Lee McMaster, is also in his first year here at the college after joining here in January. I now welcome Mr. McMaster to address you.
Thank you very much. It's lovely to have so many people here tonight, and I know this is the first of, not only tonight but tomorrow your sons will be present with us all day, so it's great to have you all on board tonight. I want to congratulate Kieran as well. What a great year you've had in Year 7, and I was sitting there just listening to all the things that Kieran has been involved in. You've certainly been very, very busy, and you've certainly put your best foot forward, and that's what I would say to all our young men out there tonight who are entering in Year 7 2020 is to have a go at everything. Be a Kieran Foran in the future. He's certainly put his best foot forward this year, so I inspire you to do as Kieran has done. First thing I would like to do is apart from welcome you, is to thank you. Thank the parents and thank your sons for making that obvious choice. Well, no, it's not an obvious choice. That's the wrong word. But thank you for making the choice of enrolling at St. Gregory's College for your secondary education. I've got to say it's an enormous privilege for us to run a school that has the traditions that it has, and for us to be the custodians of that going into the future. A school is nothing without its students. And next year, as we welcome pretty close to 165 to 170 new Year 7 students, we look forward to that journey because you will be the graduating class of 2025. I don't know if you've even thought that far ahead, but it's got a good ring to it, hasn't it? The graduating class of 2025. In my first year at the college, there's so many things that I've loved about this college. We have a very committed and professional staff, there's no doubt about it. We have a student body here that, little like Kieran, is willing to have a go. They're young men, certainly if we just talk about the senior school, they're young men who are trying their best to enable themselves to enter into a world that's ever changing. When we finished school, and I finished school back in the mid-70s, I was destined, from an early time to go into tertiary education because I wanted to become a teacher. But I think these days that's not as certain. Young people entering into life after Year 12, there are so many doors that can open. So it's our responsibility as a school. We have an accountability back to you as the parents and to your sons to ensure that we're enabling them to be the best possible people they can be as they enter into the world at the end of 2025. I think you're entering into the college at a really exciting time. I think the college, after 93 years, we celebrate 93 years this year as a college, dating back to 1926 where we had our origins. But we're entering into a new phase, and that new phase is quite exciting. As a college leadership team and as a college staff and as a parent body, as young men in our Year 11 and 12 have committed to this year, we're responding in a particular way to looking at our future directions for this college. And it's only right and proper as the new principal of this school to look to the future with a great deal of hope. And I certainly do. At the core of what we want to do next year and in the years ahead is really put a focus on teaching and learning. And if that's not our focus, then I think we really do need to shut up shop. You know, if teaching and learning isn't the core and the fundamental thing that we do, then we're not doing the right thing by you or by your sons. So I certainly think that over the coming years you'll see a much greater emphasis on the academic side of the school. You'll see a greater emphasis on learning as an activity and the engagement of the boys. And, you know, our great hope over the next few years and into the future is that our students are aspirational. They're students looking to the future with a great deal of hope and entering into that world, which is a bit of an unknown, but ready and prepared to take it on. Also, I think it's a time where, you know, we need to bed down the great traditions of this college. After 93 years, the Marist College that we very much love here needs to remain contemporary. We need to ensure that education is not something that is not moving with the times. So if we've got a contemporary education and a contemporary outlook on our faith and a holistic nature of what we're trying to do here, that better benefits your child as we go forward. So we want to further enhance our college traditions, certainly our Marist charism, and we want to strengthen the great culture of this college. And it was lovely this year a couple of weeks ago, to be with David and Jerry and Lindsay and a number of the other leadership student members here at the college, and to spend some time with them on their leadership camp. And when we asked the students what they wanted to do as part of their responsibility as student leaders, right at the top of that list was about working and ensuring that the traditions and the culture and everything about this great college remains into the future and even gets stronger every single day. So I endorse that and certainly want to work with them and the staff to ensure that that happens. I think the other thing that we need to do, and it shouldn't come as a surprise to you, is that we need to keep on working with our students, our young men, to ensure that the relationships that we build with them as a college is always respectful and it's mutual. We live in a very different time, as I've said before, and it can be quite daunting for us as educators to see students, these young men, not be willing to build that important respect level, not only with their parents but with their peers and with their teachers. And if we're going to drive ahead with our core focus around teaching and learning, one of the great things that we have to do is make sure that we build mutual respect amongst us, so that we've got those core values of community and mateship and understanding why we want to be at a school like St Gregory's. And I think finally, and you know, it's an expression that we often use here at St Greg's, is that we want to grow these fine young men to have strong minds and gentle hearts. You know, at the core of what we do here is holistic education. And it's all right to educate young men academically and on the sporting field and in the cultural pursuits, but the heart of what we have to do is to ensure that the young men that we're educating are very much men with strong minds and gentle hearts. And we do that in a number of ways. We do that through our faith program, we do it through our service, we do it through our social justice, we do it through the relationships that they build every day. So I'm excited about the future, and I hope that as parents here tonight and as young men, many young men here tonight who are entering into 2020 with us, that you come on that journey with us, that you're partners, that you make sure that, you know, and I use the expression a lot of times in my leadership team, that we get on that bus together. We're not left at the bus stop, that we join in this journey. And that journey is a really, really important one for us to as I said, go on together. So thank you. Thank you for the privilege of educating your sons over the next 6 years. That's an enormous privilege, and we don't take that lightly. And the work that we will always do is the work of the church, and we want to make sure that we're always working in partnership with you. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. McMaster. I now welcome Mrs. Kathy Clark, our Director of Mission, to speak to you.
Thanks, Jerry. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and the young men of Year 7 2020. I'm going to be very brief tonight because I just really wanted this opportunity to make sure that you feel very welcome and very included in our college as, first of all, a Catholic college and then as a Marist college. So in our prayer this evening you would have heard, and over the next 6 years you'll hear lots of the words associated with us being those two things, a Catholic college and a Marist college. But what I really wanted to make sure that you understood tonight is how welcome you are to be a part of that faith journey that we will share with your sons over the next 6 years. So there are plenty of opportunities for us to meet about your sons academically, but there are also plenty of opportunities for us to meet and share that faith journey. And I want to make sure that you feel very welcome with that. This evening in your welcome pack, you'll receive a little booklet that I've put together for you, which just goes through a lot of the details about what it means to be in a Catholic school and a Marist school. But if you just let me read a little bit of the preamble for you, it'll give you an understanding of what it's about. And so it says, whether you are new to Catholic schools or quite experienced, whether you are familiar with the Catholic Church and its rituals or a bit out of touch with local church, this booklet may help you in understanding some of the traditions, beliefs and stories which make up the Catholic faith. You're encouraged to read some of the pages of the booklet with your sons, and I encourage you to enter into discussions with them. Some of them, especially from the government schools, are very nervous about coming to Catholic school. We don't want them to be. We'll make it very, very easy, and hopefully they will join that feeling of church that Mr. McMaster mentioned with us. When you get your little booklet, on page 9 are a list of some really important events on our liturgical calendar for next year. I would hope you go home and put them on your family calendar, and if you can, join us at those events. So that's all I wanted to say to you tonight. You are very welcome, and it will be a privilege for all of us to join in that faith journey with you and your sons as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Clark. I would now like to welcome Mrs. Louise Miller, our Director of Teaching and Learning, to speak to you.
Thank you, David. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, both young and not as young as the youngest in the room. Look, it's my pleasure to speak tonight, I guess to get you hopefully a little bit excited or a little bit interested about what's going to happen in the classroom for you tomorrow and next year. And I hope you'll forgive me when I go through a couple of very amateur photographs that I took around the school last week. I took them because I wanted you to have a bit of a glimpse of what is actually happening. It's a very real, raw glimpse of what's happening in our classrooms. So I'll go through some of the, I guess, less exciting stuff in some ways, just in terms of information sharing. But I hope that this is a little bit exciting for our young men coming into St Greg's next year to see that they're going to be able to experience a broadening of the curriculum next year. Certainly there's a lot there that you're all used to learning in your classrooms. Once you come into high school, it's a little bit separated out. You're moving between subjects and different teachers. And one of the things that I love as I go around our school is looking at the different ways that the learning happens in all of these subjects. And I think that's something really exciting about coming to high school, and particularly to St Greg's, that opportunity to see different teachers doing different things in different spaces. And that's something that I really do hope that you're all looking forward to. So you can see the list of subjects that you'll engage in when you first come to St Greg's next year. And I think something you wouldn't be as used to would be the mandatory technology area, where finally you get to pick up I was going to say shovel, but that's not quite right. There is a bit of ag, so you get to pick up a shovel as you walk behind a cow or two. But you'll get to play around with a few tools in the woodwork rooms. You all know what those tools are. I'm not so good at it. But I did walk around the woodwork rooms this afternoon and loved what I saw happening in those spaces. That's something to really look forward to, getting your hands a bit dirty. We're engaging with technology, of course, at St Greg's. And one of the things that some of you will be excited about is getting your laptop next year. And look, laptops are used in our classrooms, sometimes a lot depending on the activity, and sometimes, not that much depending on the activity. And that's because even though laptops and technology, they're great tools to work with, there's also a great responsibility around them. And we take that seriously, and we hope that you'll support us in working on the skills and the citizenship and the responsibility that's associated with technology use with our young people. But we're certainly very excited to be engaging with technology, particularly not knowing what's around the corner. This is one of my immature moments with my iPhone. This is something that's in development at the moment. Our boys have created this thing. It's called a 3D augmented reality sandbox. It is a box and it's got sand in it. That's why it's called a sandbox. But it uses a 3D projector and basically creates topography, a landscape on sand. And students get to run there. You can hold your hand over it and it rains from your hand onto the landscape and the water runs in. Some of you who are a bit more with it might notice that at the moment our water is on top of the hills when it's supposed to be on the bottom, and something's a bit upside down. And this is really good learning that our kids are involved with. This was created by our students. And you won't find these in many places. You probably can buy them by now. People are always looking for money opportunities, but you'll usually find sandboxes in universities because they actually take a lot of effort to make. And our boys have been involved in that. That is almost done. That's something I'm really excited about. And I hope that we can get our young men in the audience today involved in some more creative, technological activities as they arrive. Look, I know some of you are probably going to be a bit concerned about homework, and I guess I would say not to be. We're not going to throw you straight into some really serious homework regime, but we do try to from the beginning, get everyone used to some of those skills that are really important for as you get older and engaged in more and more study. And homework is part of that, building up that stamina to sit and focus, have that concentration. So if you're not used to it, don't worry, we'll get you used to it. We go through with our classes, with our teachers, look at small amounts of homework to begin with, and we try to be gentle with you. It's not my place to mention the red stamps and the green stamps. That's somebody else's job, but they're not things to really worry about. When you're doing homework for us at St Greg's, the idea is that it's going to be some meaningful activities to develop your understanding and skills in coursework. One of the things that I would remind you is that communication is really important, and we should all be reminded of that actually, because I know that two-way communication is something that I think makes everyone feel like they're part of a family, part of that sense of belonging. And so for communication, if at the beginning of next year, if after tomorrow you feel like your son's a little bit overwhelmed with all of this information, then give us a call. Let us know what's going on. And we'll try and do the same. We've got lots of opportunities next year, but you'll come across them and learn about them next year for communication. But at the moment, pick up the phone and give us a call. So we make a fuss about the fact that we're pretty keen on the holistic learning experience at St Greg's, and that means that we're engaging our young people in academic, spiritual, social, physical, vocational aspects of learning. All of it goes together, and we think each of these is really important in making a whole student experience. And that's the case for our learning as well. In our classrooms, these things are all important to us. As a school that has for a long time been focused on the education of young men, we know that young men, you're not going to admit it now to your parents, guys, but young men love boundaries and rules, right? It's nice to know what you're supposed to do, where you're supposed to kind of fit in with things. And so we know that boundaries are really important in learning. We know that we should have high expectations of our students, and we love our students to have high expectations for themselves and their own learning. We know that students who feel like their learning is relevant are much more likely to be engaged in the classroom. So we'd love to know more about you. We can use that against you in the classroom. We know that it's important to have a growth mindset. I think most of you would have done some of that work at school, in primary schools already. But the idea that we all have these beautiful brains that they're not actually fixed, that our intelligence is not fixed. We've all got the capability to learn. And so when we have a growth mindset, we're really saying, I just don't know this yet, but I can get there. And that brings with it a sense of resilience. You know, the knowledge that you can pick yourself up and move on. They're really things that we value. And all of that comes down to relationships. And I really hope that you see our positive relationships building in those, on the sports field, in our masses, and in our classrooms with our classroom teachers. So, hopefully you're all going to come into Year 7 next year really understanding that learning is hard. If learning is easy, you're probably not actually learning. You're probably just able to show exactly what you already know. Learning's really hard. And so when you guys come in next year, I really hope that we're taking you through what someone, James Nottingham, has posed as a learning pit. That when you are presented with a problem, you're stuck in the bottom of a pit and you really have to struggle and use all your resources to get out of it. If you are crawling out of that pit, then you know that you're learning. Oh yeah, so these are two kids who didn't make it out of the pit. This is the start of some of my amateur photos, right? So be patient with me, but this is something that got me excited. On Friday afternoon, knowing that I was presenting here, I walked around the school, period 5 and period 6, the last two lessons on the last day of the week. And I guess I wandered because I thought it would be really great to show you what was happening in our classrooms then. Because I suspect that some people would imagine it's an animal house. And in wandering around, I took all these photos and I just liked that. That's in the science lab. Gents, next year, you should ask what the name of the skeleton is. His name belongs to one of our teachers. So you're going to have to find out really early who it is so you don't offend that person. But that's it. They're obviously in our science labs. This room excited me. I'm an English teacher, so this is really new and unusual to me, but this was our little storage of chemicals, and I could remember the great times when you could blow up anything you wanted in a classroom. It doesn't happen anymore, but this is where some of that cool stuff is. And this is one of our art classes. The boys in this classroom in period 5 were working quietly and having chats to their partners. You can't quite see the teacher because remember it's amateur photography, but she's sitting there talking to one of our students and she was moving around the room. It was such a beautiful atmosphere, period 5 on a Friday in an art class. This was our workshop area. On the left they're making bread boxes. And I went into that classroom again today actually and saw their progress. And the young gentlemen are really proud when they've got something really physical to show for their learning. On the right-hand side, they're making trebuchets. Not really sure if the teacher thought out the idea of helping students make catapults. That's what they are, but that of course is something that the young men love. This is in our Marion Learning Centre. This was a Year 7 history class, and they were working quietly around a circle, having a chat to one another, helping one another learn, and our teacher and teacher's aide wandering around, giving students help as needed, using some of our technology as well. This is all period 5, right? I didn't make this up. This is work happening at the end of the day, at the end of the week. And also, this was a Year 9, I think, technology class, and they were building little robots. I have no idea how. And this was a beautiful shot. Might not look beautiful, but this was in the changeover between period 5 and period 6. Students moving around. I just thought, wow, that captures how clean and quiet and gentle everyone is. Doesn't mean they're clean and quiet and gentle all the time, but I was really proud to see just this cleanliness and this movement. And that carried through to the start of period 6. That beautiful shot on the left is a corridor outside one of our classrooms. I did not set it up. Those bags are lined up there beautifully outside the classroom. There's no rubbish. I didn't pick up a thing. That is what it looked like. And on the right-hand side, the class that was inside that classroom, that was a science lesson working quietly on some problems of their own. I was just blown away, to actually look at it from that perspective at the end of the week. So I hope that gets you a real sense of some learning that's happening in our classrooms, a sense of calm at the end of the week as well, because you know they're going to come home to you crazy otherwise. So I guess following on from that very quickly, I'd like to just reaffirm with you the importance of sharing information about your son's learning with us. Particularly as we go into tomorrow, we're doing some testing. Some boys might be nervous about that. That is not, it's not to make massive judgments about you. It's not to treat you terribly afterwards. That's actually so we can have a look and have a bit of a pinpoint about where we might need to offer some support. So it's really important that you share that information with us really openly. This might seem a bit left field, but as we near the end of the year, you might take the opportunity to have a look at your son's handwriting. We are seeing a decline in handwriting standards of students coming into Year 7. I've seen kids holding pencils with that club grip. Some of you here might have that. I've seen kids wrap their fingers awkwardly around the pencil. Some hold the pen at a really bad angle and twist their arms all over the place. Have a think about what opportunities you might have over the next few months for helping your son concentrate on going back to some basics with their handwriting. Because coming into high school, there's a lot more of that happening. A lot of timed exercises, etc. So I'd really encourage you to look at that. And finally, I'd like to reaffirm the importance of reading. We have a reading program here at St Greg's, but the sad reality is that a lot of our young men, by the time they come into Year 7 or 8, they have completely disengaged from reading. And what all the international testing tells us is that puts our young men at a disadvantage against wonderful young women in their literacy development. So I really reaffirm the importance of reading at home. It is really hard to move students forward in their learning if they're not readers. So that is something I would like to end on as a real encouragement to you. That's not so exciting for some of you, but the world of books is really exciting if you find the right book. All right, so welcome and thanks very much for your time.
Thank you, Mrs. Miller. Before continuing tonight, I would like to further introduce and show the proud identity I hold at this college. I started my journey as a boarding student and a young man almost 6 years ago stemming from a cattle station located far north of Bourke in western New South Wales. As the boarding captain now for 2020, I believe I am fully aware of the opportunities and challenges alike that are based within this college. In light of this, I would now like to invite Year 7 boarding students Mason Rope and Daniel Canellis, who have just embarked on their own boarding journey and wish to speak of their experience. Please welcome Mason and Daniel.
Good evening. I'm Daniel Canellis, a Year 7 boarder. I come from a small country town called Boorowa with a population of about 1,200 people. It is about half an hour west of Yass, which is about 3 hours from here. When I started at St Greg's, I was very nervous, having to move away from my family and having to live with the crazy bunch that I now call my friends. I've had a great first year, being able to have many great opportunities, including sport opportunities such as rugby, cricket and rugby league. Also, as a boarder, we have had the chance to go out on many outings such as Gunnamatta Bay in Cronulla, Luna Park, Bondi Beach, NRL and Big Bash games, and we'll be going to Jamboree at the end of the year. The academic side of school is very enjoyable at times as well, but you have to really knuckle down in the serious exam period. Overall, Year 7 at St Greg's has been a wonderful time and gives great opportunities, both curricular and co-curricular.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Mason Rope, and I'm from a small country town called Nyngan that has a population of roughly 2,500 people. Nyngan is about 8 hours west from here, and as you may have picked up, I'm a full-time boarder at the college, and I love every second of it. When I first started at the college, I would not have thought that I would have made such great friends, and I certainly wouldn't have thought that I would have settled in so quickly. The day school offers so many opportunities that I wouldn't get at home. Some of these include sporting activities such as volleyball and tag archery, although my favourite sport would have to be rugby league. It also offers a wide variety of amazing academic opportunities brought to us by the outstanding staff at the college. Boarding at the college is great. You make lifelong friends, go to NRL and Big Bash games, use the sporting fields, pool and cricket nets after school, and you also get to live with your best mates. Just be careful not to annoy Miss Santa Maria, or you'll miss out on her famous Friday night hot chocolate, and trust me, you don't want to. In boarding, you are encouraged to play ISA rugby, which can help you strengthen your relationships with both day students and boarders. You also get to show off a few skills as well. All in all, Greg's is a fantastic school, and you won't get much better sporting or academic opportunities. I can also guarantee you won't find a better group of mates anywhere. Thank you, and I'll see you all next year.
Thank you, Dan and Mason, for your insight into your own boarding journey here at St Greg's. Both Mr. Max Spencer, our Director of Boarding, and Mrs. Kate Stott, our College Registrar, are in the room tonight should you wish to find out further information about boarding for your son at St Gregory's.
Thank you, Jerry. I would now like to invite Mr. Paul Brooks, our Deputy Principal, to speak about pastoral care at the college.
Thanks very much, David, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen and boys. And just to congratulate Mason and Daniel, and obviously Kieran before that. It's fantastic for them to be able to stand up here and to speak about their experiences of their first year of high school. You're going to see them back up here again in a couple of minutes after I've just said a few things. I'll tell you more about that in just a second. But just in terms of big focus that we'd like to have with your sons, and revolves around something which is called pastoral care. Now, it's a word that you've no doubt heard, and certainly, I guess, you have your own idea of what that might mean. And I'd like you to understand that we take it to mean it's around the emotional, social and spiritual support and the development in those areas. So the emotional, well-being, the social support through engaging with people, and the spiritual dimension as well. And at St Greg's, that's very much informed by our Christian, our Catholic and our Maoist tradition. And that's very much centred around, as you can see, things like the dignity and respect for the individual and for one another. So one's respect for oneself, respect for others, and not just in terms of respect for people, but it's also the respect that's shown by the way in which the boys dress and the way in which they behave, the way in which they speak to teachers and so forth. And obviously a part of any good pastoral care is the fact that we're really realistic enough to know that boys will make mistakes, and there's got to be an element of forgiveness and an opportunity to make good for something that mightn't go right. Mr McMaster spoke to you earlier about ultimately the goal here of turning your sons from good young boys into fine young men and demonstrating strong minds and gentle hearts. Mr Wilson, who's our Year 7 coordinator, will speak after me, and he's the last speaker tonight. He'll say a little bit more about tomorrow, and he'll say a little bit more about Year 7 in general. But just to let you know that we do have a formal program for the boys in each year group in terms of a pastoral care program. Next year we're actually introducing a weekly year meeting with the boys as well, which will be on a Wednesday. But there's a formal program pastoral care lesson on a Friday over the year. Occasionally we have full assemblies, whether it's the senior school or the entire college here in the hall, but in many of the other Friday morning times it's a formal pastoral care lesson, and Mr Wilson will probably say a little bit about what happens in that time. I am going to show you a slide in a minute, and I know that it might send shockwaves down Kieran, and he might break into cold sweat again because he talked about this red stamp. I'm only putting it up there just to emphasise the fact, and Louise spoke a minute ago about the purpose of this thing here that I have, and that's called the College Diary. Okay, and it's obviously this year's version of the diary. Very, very important way by which home and school communicate. So I can't emphasise enough the importance, as Louise did, of keeping open the lines of communication between home and school. And I'd like to think we can move to a point where, you know, we can say to you next year, well, look, you've got a number of options as to who you can speak to, but your son's homeroom teacher, you know, someone that sees him every day, you know, in the mornings, and may or may not be his teacher, but that's a really good starting point as a point of contact, someone that knows your son really well and gets to see your son. And obviously there's other people in the school who you can contact, but just to understand that there's plenty of people who you can contact, but really a good first point of contact might be your son's homeroom teacher, just if you've got some concerns. And if they're obviously more significant concerns, well, there's other people. So Kieran has mentioned it, Louise has mentioned it, I think everyone else up here has mentioned it tonight. So to put you out of your misery, in case you're wondering what it looks like, not to put a lot of emphasis on it, but that's the green stamp. I know it's not green, it should be green, but it's not. That's sort of a quick way of teachers communicating with parents around something that's really positive. Okay, so a notification of achievement or something that's meritorious. That should look red. It is red. That's your red stamp. I won't leave it on the screen for too long because of the concerns that it causes Kieran. But the point about the red and the green stamp isn't about the red and the green stamp. It's about the fact that it's a way of keeping open communication between home and school. And it's a quick, simple way where teachers can say to you, this is really good about something your son's done, or this is a concern. And obviously if something's happening one-off, that's not a concern. When something's happening frequently, then it becomes more of a concern. And I'd like to think we try and look for the good things as well. I mean, we do try and find as many opportunities as we can to say to boys, well done, keep up the great effort, which is easy because most of the boys, most of the time, do that. Now, this is where we get 4 boys back up. You've seen 3 of them up here tonight, but I'm going to ask them to come up now and stand on the stage. So 2 of them, I think you've worked out, are wearing the sports uniform, and 2 of them are wearing the regular uniform. Do not be shy, boys. Come on up and stand up here. So you've met Kieran already. You've heard from Mason and Daniel, and Marcus is also coming up here as well. Now, you know, 3 of these boys are from the country, long way to travel to school each day. Kieran standing next to me, he's the most local, he just lives down the road. You heard we've got people from Ningen and we've got from Helston, which is Marcus on the end there. Now, Marcus and Mason are wearing the sports uniform. And the difference is, Mason and Daniel are wearing the sports uniform in the centre here. And they're going to walk down the centre in a minute so you can get a closer look. There are some mannequins outside you would have noticed in the foyer, but the mannequins aren't very interactive. The boys didn't like me using the term dummies, so I said no, I'll use the term mannequin. But you've got 4 real-life Year 7 students out the front here showing you how the uniform is to be worn. So in the centre there we've got the winter sports uniform, which is Daniel, 2 from me, and Mason obviously with the summer sports uniform. It comes with the smile as well, but you'll notice the grooming as well with the hair, with the not just the smiles, but the way in which they're wearing it so proudly. And of course, when we talk about the winter, the school uniform, the regular school uniform, it's really good that Daniel on the end there, Marcus on the end, is wearing his long grey socks pulled up, you'll notice, which is great. Now, he can wear long pants in summer, but he's obviously choosing not to. In winter time, it's as Kieran's dressed here with his long pants and the blazer, of course. And you'll notice, boys, the top button's done up and the tie's done right up as well. So, boys, if you'd like to just take a little bit of a walk down the centre aisle here so everyone can get to see how it needs to look. Of course, when you come back here, boys, at the start of next year, it's going to be in your summer, in term 1 and term 4, we wear the summer uniform. And don't you love the way they're walking down there so proudly? They're going to get to the end and they're going to walk back. If you'd like to see the uniform on boys that are a bit older, there are a lot of Year 12 boys at the back at the end of the evening. You'll be able to see them proudly wearing their summer uniform. So here they come back up. One more chance to see how it's worn, boys, so you can get it right, and we'll give them a round of applause. Just one thing you might have noticed, that Kieran's got a bad foot there and he might have had a thong on one of his feet. That's not part of the uniform. That's just actually because he's got a bad foot. Normally it's 2 nice black polished shoes. Think you've got the idea? Very important that we wear our uniform and we're well groomed as these boys are tonight. Thank you very much, boys, for being prepared to come up and show us how the uniform's worn. Thanks very much, ladies and gentlemen and boys.
Thank you, Mr. Brooks, and our model students. Our last speaker tonight is Mr. Luke Wilson, our Year 7 coordinator. Mr. Wilson will speak to you now about our orientation day tomorrow and what to expect when you commence at St. Gregory's next year. Please welcome Mr. Wilson.
Thank you, David. I can't help but notice how beautifully people have spoken without any notes this evening, and the pressure is well and truly on, but I'm in the business of logistics tonight, so excuse me for relying on my notes. If I can draw your attention to the very first slide. It tells us in big bold print that tomorrow is orientation day. Hopefully that's not a surprise to any of you. Firstly, the arrival for tomorrow is between 8 and 8:20. Parents can use the farm car park, which is directly opposite the hall and beyond the basketball courts. From there you can walk your sons up to the grassed area just in front of the hall where you entered this evening. Dress for the day is your current primary school sports uniform. At 8:30 we'll begin with a short prayer before the boys are invited into the hall, where they will sit the first of their 2 exams. As we heard a little bit earlier on, we have English and Maths on tomorrow. They will be met there by a member of the student leadership group who will become your big brothers. After those exams, they will take you on a tour of the school. The boys will conclude their tour at the dining room where lunch will be served. After lunch, the PE department will run some activities here in the hall until about 1:45. The boys will then have a short assembly where they will meet some of the members of the homeroom team for 2020 and our pastoral care coordinator. At 2 p.m, the boys will be dismissed for the day. Please note that recess and lunch will be provided. However, we're encouraging boys to bring with them a hat and a water bottle. And as we often find ourselves saying in Year 7, please label, label, label. There will be nearly 180 boys here tomorrow, and it will be easy to leave something behind. On to the next slide. The first day of school in 2020. You'll note that the boarding families of Year 7 will arrive a couple of days earlier than other boys, They will be here from the 28th of January. The rest of the cohort, the day boys, will arrive from 8 a.m. on Thursday, the 30th of January. Parents, again, we ask that you park at the farm on that day and walk your boys up to the flagpoles, which are at the top of the hall. You may have noticed them on the way past. From there, they'll be placed into their homeroom groups before entering the hall for their first college assembly. Parents are invited to stay and participate in this assembly and be present as the boys receive their individual welcome certificates. At the conclusion of the assembly, the boys will be taken back into their homerooms by their homeroom teacher, where general expectations and admin procedure will be addressed. Each boy has the option of taking on a locker which lightens the load of the school bag and can help with organisation. For that first day, Year 7, for that day only, will finish at 2:15. Pickup will be from the bus bay, which is just out here on the right as you exit the hall. The boys will need to be collected no later than 2:45 to make way for school buses. Parents who are picking up their boys from day 2 onwards will need to do so from the western entrance, the far entrance, which is just off Bad Gully Road. Boys will also have the option of leaving on public buses from day 1 if they prefer. The next slide identifies some of the highlights of Year 7. The camp at Narrabeen, which we heard a little bit about earlier on from Kieran, is a popular addition to Term 1. The boys spend 2 nights away from home and participate in a high ropes course, canoeing, archery, and abseiling, among some other outdoor activities. Another great event worth mentioning is the Boys and Blokes Trivia Night, which encourages the competitive spirit among male family members and provides a platform for fathers and sons to deliver their best dad jokes in preparation for that year's impending Father's Day. The mums are certainly not left out, with a touching liturgy and a very exclusive breakfast for mothers and sons in the lead up to Mother's Day. Information about all of the Year 7 highlights that appear up on the screen comes out well in advance, and families have plenty of opportunity to participate in your son's life at the college. Thank you and enjoy the rest of the evening.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. Standing up here today, I've just been reminiscing my own enrolment evening back in 2014, and if I just think about how far I've come personally and where I am today, you know, huge credit must go to this place, because I know for a fact I would not have become the person I am today if I didn't come to St. Greg's. But tonight, gentlemen, marks the beginning of your journey here at the college, and just to think that you are now going to become part of something that goes back to a time when even your parents or caregivers weren't even born. To become part of an identity, to become part of a culture that has been around 93 years. And I think if you look at it from that angle, it's something truly special. And I know all of Year 12 are very excited to experience in our last year at the college with you guys, who will be experiencing your first year at the college. So together, let's make 2020 a memorable year for all of us, and let's make 2020 a great year. And so I'd like to thank you for your attendance tonight. So behind you are tables which have packages containing documents with information in regards to sport uniforms, bus companies, sport houses, uniforms, all uniforms, and our college foundation, to name just a few. The packages are in alphabetical order of your son's surname. If you have any questions whatsoever, please feel free to ask the many staff who have joined us this evening. Other than that, on behalf of the college, I wish you a good evening and a safe journey home, and I look forward to seeing you all again tomorrow. So thank you and have a good night.